Yeah, man. Welcome back to Angry Lakers Fan versus WWE. As you can see with the title, man, a former WWE Tag Team Champion came out and blasted WWE over contract practices. Um, I'm about to let y'all see who it is. I'm about to play a 3-minute video. So grab your popcorn and I'll see y'all when it's done.
Hey, it's Kurt Angle. Tap that like and subscribe button for Angry Lakers Fan, or I'll make you tap. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Yeah!
Yesterday on our program, we had Tony Khan in studio, and one of the topics that I spoke to him about was this Andrade story, where he gets released from WWE. He shows up for one night on AEW, and then reportedly AEW receives a cease and desist, and he disappears, nowhere to be found. And that was like really one of the few topics that Tony seemed a little uncomfortable talking about, and I can understand from a legal standpoint, perhaps he doesn't want to, get into any hot water. What is your understanding of this, and how did this happen, and could it have been avoided if you were Andrade or AEW?
Well, how did this happen? This is in all WWE contracts. It's been in them at least since 2017, probably further back than that. And I would imagine it's in most wrestling companies' contracts, and it's a non-compete clause. And in WWE's, it's been in there, and it says it can go up to 1 year. That's in the contract. Although in practice, WWE typically releases talent, and there'll be a 90-day non-compete, and it's usually paid. But in this situation, for whatever reason, this is the first time I ever recall WWE wanted to enforce this against Andrade for an entire year without pay.
Wow.
And that's pretty stiff. And I think if Andrade wanted to challenge this in court, I think he'd likely be successful, to be honest with you. But that's quite a headache and an endeavor in and of itself. So I think the question is, like, why is this happening now and it's never happened before? Like, what's the issue? And I mean, I could see it if they were trying to stop Andrade because he was, the biggest thing at WWE. He'd built up a ton of heat or whatever, and then was going to take this over to AEW. But that wasn't the case. Doesn't seem like WWE was doing much with him. So it's not like he was taking a lot of heat or anything or goodwill from WWE over somewhere else. So I'm still kind of confused by this. I'd love to hear what Tony Khan said about it, because I'm just trying to find out more information on this.
Well, so I'm curious, why a year and not 90 days? Like, how do they even describe that, classify that in the contract? And how do they determine if it's going to be, because sometimes it's 30 days, 60, 90, right? Depending on if your contract expires or you get released. But I've never heard of the 1 year. Where does the 1 year fall under?
Well, the 1 year is what's actually in the contract. In the contract that I looked at when preparing for this, there's just a 1 year. It doesn't say anything about 90 days or anything like that. It's a 1 year non-compete. However, it's up to WWE's discretion because it can be up to 1 year. So they never typically try to enforce all the way up to 1 year. It's just in practice been 90 days. So people just assume it's a 90-day non-compete. But if you actually go look at the contract, it doesn't say anything in there about 90 days. It says 1 year.
And so you mentioned that it's usually 90 days with pay. That's like what it typically is. Why would it be 1 year without pay? How can you stop someone from getting paid for a year?
Exactly. You're preventing somebody from making a living in their trade. You can't do that, because here's the thing. And we had to get into this. I made a whole video about this.
Yeah.
So WWE says that wrestlers are independent contractors, which means they can work anywhere, right? So if they're fired from WWE, if a wrestler's fired from WWE, they should be able to go work for AEW. Now, if this was an employer-employee relationship, that's a different story, because then there could be a non-compete. However, so WWE can't have it both ways. They're treating wrestlers like independent contractors. Or no, they're saying wrestlers are independent contractors, but treating them like employees. That's the issue here.
Yeah.
And that could easily be challenged in court, and likely, you would win.
Why do you think no one has done that? Why has no one challenged them?
I think, I'll be honest, I think most people don't know this. Forgive me, but like, in being a lawyer myself, like I knew this from the time I signed, and I forgot most people aren't lawyers and they don't know what's in their WWE contract. And so, like, when I made a video about this, I'll be honest, I was shocked by the reaction that it blew up, and people were really surprised by this. And I'm like, there's no way I'm the first person to have talked about this or mentioned this. Like, but I guess it just wasn't widely known. I guess a lot of talent, they sign that contract and never look at it again. But for me, I was always doing a lot of things outside of WWE, and the contract is very restrictive. So I was always asking for their permission to do something else, or sometimes I would go do something else and then let them know after the fact or after I booked it, and just beg for forgiveness.
Did you review your own contracts, or did you have someone do that for you?
Both. I mean,
Okay.
I reviewed it and I knew what I was reading, but I took it to an entertainment attorney as well, just to make sure he saw the same thing I was seeing. And it was funny because he told me, he's like, David, you can't sign this. You're a lawyer. This is way too restrictive. Like you can't sign this, they'll own you. And I said, yes, I understand, but I really want to be a professional wrestler. I really want to work here. So I'm going to sign this.
Oh,
I just got to ask you a question. What do you think? How do you feel about this situation? Every time you hear about a wrestler or wrestlers being fired, being released, and they gotta, because every time they get released, we're always hearing about this 90-day no compete clause. But coming to find out, it's no such thing. That's why it's important to have a lawyer. That's why it's important to always know what you're signing and, be aware of what comes with it. As you see, a lot of people don't know, and they find out the hard way. But yeah, this has been Angry Lakers fan, man, and I'll see you on the next one.